we're going.
It's not that giant.
I don't know. Everything's bigger in Texas.
Yeah.
All right, are we good?
I don't know.
What the hell are you wearing?
Clothes? What are you wearing?
You're wearing a vest?
You guys are live, by the way.
What's wrong with what I'm wearing? Are we live?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't see him. I can't see you yet. So, oh, there it is live. What are you wearing?
Oh, we just gotta turn that down.
Yeah. When is it going to come up here?
I don't think it is.
Why?
Here. Oh, there he is.
There you are. Good. Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead and shut that door.
Boys.
We're going to have some fun.
You're live.
Great. Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome to Finance Friday. This is where we help people grow their money and also protect it. If this is your first time watching, we want to give financial tips, also entertain a little bit. Amy's way more formal than I am. I've known Judd for years, so I have a feeling this might be some fun today. Sorry, we're a little bit late today. It's 4:06. We usually go on at 4. We're having issues with the Wi-Fi, so but we're live now, and so yeah. So today, our guest, a Super Bowl champion, father of 6. I wrote it all out here. Father of 6. He coached for the New Orleans Saints, Miami Dolphins, the St. Louis Rams, and currently on the staff of the Dallas Cowboys. Thanks for being on the show, Judd Garrett.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for finally getting your computer to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we should start by congratulating you and your wife on a new baby.
Yeah, about 4 weeks ago, we had a baby boy, little Charlie, Charles James, after my father and her father. So we're really excited about that.
That's awesome. Is he sleeping through the night?
Not yet, but he does a good job of eating, though.
Good.
He's eating 24 hours a day.
Nice.
So.
Oh, very good. So you do call him Charlie? I was wondering if you call him Charlie or Charles.
I call him Charlie. Some people call him CJ. We're just going to let it evolve from there.
Okay.
See what happens, see what sticks.
Nice.
You know.
Oh, very good. And so you have 6 kids.
6, yes.
6. So you have, what, is it 3 boys and 3 girls now?
3 and 3, a little bit of the Brady Bunch going.
Man. So you'll be what, like 95 when Charlie goes to college?
92, actually.
Oh, 92. Very good.
Yeah, correct that.
All right. So
still be able to kick your ass in basketball, though.
Well, do you want to talk about the last time we played? We could if you want. I remember somebody walked off the court. He was getting beat so bad.
No, because someone was cheating so bad.
Oh, my gosh. All right. We'll get into that some other time. So Amy's going to come in here and yell at me. I should go lock that door because she was very concerned that we weren't going to talk enough finance and we would talk more sports. So I'm going to try. We're going to do our best to tie in the finance and sports and kind of touch on some of your experiences and you know, what happened, how everything progressed when you were in college and got drafted by the Eagles, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go back to when you were in college. So you tell us where you went to school and a little bit about your college experience.
Well, I played football at Princeton. I graduated in 1990. We had the 3 years I played for them. We had some very good teams. We won the Ivy League title my senior year and played well enough to get drafted by the Eagles in 1990 and embarked on an NFL career from there. Okay,
very good. In 1990, I'm trying to remember, like obviously the draft is huge now. You know, it's on TV for 3 straight days on ESPN and the whole thing is live. Back then, was it on TV, the draft? I don't even remember.
The draft was on TV. It wasn't the big to do that it is now.
Yeah.
I think it was just ESPN carried it, and it was just very basic, giving the information to the people, but there wasn't all the pageantry that goes with it and all the, individual stories with each guy that gets drafted. They just sort of mentioned the names and went on to the next pick.
Right. What's going on? I swear to God, next time she does a live, I'm going to.
View is distracting.
What's wrong?
There.
Okay. Lock the door when you leave.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do with her. All right, so let's go back to college. So you were a scholarship athlete, yes?
Well, actually, at Princeton, Ivy League schools, they don't give scholarships. Everything is worked off a need-based aid. So I got a pretty decent financial aid, but it wasn't a full scholarship.
Okay. Well, you get when you played football, because I think right now college scholarship athletes, are they allowed to have jobs now? I don't think so.
I don't believe they are.
So
there was a lot of people cheating on that, so
yeah,
they kind of did away with it.
Right. So what are your thoughts on because a big reason why we got into the sports and entertainment area was because a lot of the athletes, it's very common that you see all the time that these athletes are losing all their money shortly after they retire. It's very common. So, I think it's talked about in college where the guys, they don't really have any experience with money because they're not allowed to work, right? Your food's paid for, your room and board are paid for. So they really don't have to deal with money until they're thrown millions of dollars after going pro.
Yeah, they get a little bit of a stipend every month as part of their scholarship, but it's nothing near that they get what they get when they end up getting drafted and going into the NFL or another pro sport. So for a lot of these guys, you see it. They're not from a wealthy background. They're not from an affluent background. They haven't had their hands on a lot of money. And again, like you said, they're given millions and millions of dollars. A lot of times in the NFL, first round draft pick, that signing bonus may be 10, 15, $20 million up front. And that's money that they're getting in a check right away.
Yeah.
And some guys don't realize that, they get that money up front, but their base salaries for the next 2 or 3 years are much more, middle of the road. It may only be 500,000, 600,000. So they go out and spend that money up front, like that's what they're going to get every year, and it's not. And they need someone there to tell them, hey, here's your money to spend, and then we're going to keep this rest of the stuff for later on.
Right. So when who was it? Chubb, I think the defensive end that just went to the Broncos. I think he got $15 million, and he was like the 5th pick.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
like a $15 or $16 million signing bonus, which was crazy to me. I thought I didn't know that they were getting those kind of signing bonuses after what was it? Cam Newton was the first one or the last quarterback to get that big deal before they did the restructure.
It was Sam Bradford, but Bradford, his total contract was like $60 or $70 million. Yeah. It was ridiculous. So they've done a lot to put in a rookie salary scale to keep that down. But the top 15, 20 guys picked in the draft, they're going to get a significant amount of money up front. That's the way it works. And with the NFL, different from like Major League Baseball, the whole contract isn't guaranteed. So the money they get up front is their guaranteed money. And then everything they have after that, they have to earn that. They got to play out their entire contract to get the rest of that money. So the NFL uses the signing bonus as a way to guarantee this amount of money, but they also reserve the right to, if the guy's not playing well enough or living up to their expectations, they can release them and move on from them and not be obligated for the rest of the contract.
Right. Just the guaranteed money, just the signing bonus.
Just the money up front. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So when you were coming out of college, did you have an agent to help you with your money, or did you rely on your parents? Like who as a young guy coming out of college right into the pros, tell us about that. What was that experience like?
Well, for me, I wasn't, I was a 12th round draft pick, so they don't even have 12 rounds anymore. So I wasn't a guy who was getting a big contract, a big signing bonus, or anything like that. I mean, for me, even coming from Princeton, the contract I got was pretty good, but it was nowhere near what the top guys were getting. So I was drafted. I didn't feel like I needed an agent. I kind of negotiated my own deal. My dad had been in the business for 30 years. He had coached, he had scouted. He gave me some good advice on how to handle things. And in fact, he in certain degrees worked as my agent. Really, I didn't really have, anybody to handle my money until I came to you, and then you sort of took it over about 20 years ago, and things have really done well for me that way.
Oh, very good. Well, thanks for saying so. So when you were coming out, did you grow up rooting for any particular team, or?
Well, as I said, my dad was a coach, so he coached for a bunch of different teams. He coached for the Giants, the Saints, the Cowboys, the Browns. So whatever team my dad was with was sort of the team I rooted for. So I was sort of had the misfortune of rooting for the Browns for about 7 years, but I kind of got over that. And
I think that the bad luck is going to change, right? I mean, don't you think? I mean, they look really good.
Well, we'll see. I mean, actually, I'm kind of a fan of Baker Mayfield. I think I don't know if that was the best choice, but I think he's going to be a really good football player. So we'll see how it goes. And they've done a good job over the last couple of years of getting a lot of good young talent. They stockpiled the picks for a while and are trying to do it by pure numbers, is drafting as many guys as they can, and hopefully those guys pan out. So we'll see. We'll see. I think they have a chance.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Super Bowl, but I think they're going to win more than they won last year.
Oh God, I hope so. So, going back to your dad, Amy always chuckles a little bit when I refer to your dad as Mr. Garrett. I don't know why she thinks that's funny, but I mean, I don't know what else to call him. The only thing I would refer to him as Mr. Garrett, but if I ever saw him, I would always probably call him Coach. And tell everybody a story about your dad that would give everybody I always thought he was one of the best storytellers I've ever come across. And you're going to move around and lose your Wi-Fi. All right, there you go. I know you're good when I see your fan in the back.
I had to shut the door because the dogs were starting to bark. I didn't want to get
dogs plural
infringing on her.
Dogs plural? Wait, you have 6 kids and how many dogs?
2.
What do you need 2 dogs for? Oh my gosh.
That's I keep asking myself.
Yeah, no doubt. So maybe give a quick story about your dad, because he was such an incredible person and really almost a legend. Anyone who knew him definitely remembers him.
Oh yeah, my dad was a great man. He was unbelievably influential in my life and in a lot of people's lives. The picture I have for my dad is, being at his house in New Jersey. He's got the big field in the backyard where we used to work out every day over the summers when I was growing up. We'd have these big practices, and guys would just pull up off the street that we never even saw before, just kind of pull up, get out of their car. My dad would just fit them right into the workout. And I can't tell you how many times, guys like that would just sort of walk up, start practicing with us. And after about a half hour, 45 minutes, he'd be on the phone, trying to get him to an NFL team, trying to get him to a CFL team, trying to get him to a college or whatever. If you thought you could play and you thought there was a spot for you somewhere, he would do whatever he could to get you to that place to help move your life along and move your career along. So, that's a big memory of me, of my dad. And there's numerous stories, that I could get into, but,
Yeah. Great.
I don't know how much time you have.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what time it is. I didn't wear a watch today, so we'll end when we end. But we're today our guest is Judd Garrett of the Dallas Cowboys. We're talking about money and sports, and let's get back to the young players. Talking about money and sports. As a young player, do the young guys typically? Because what I'm finding is a lot of guys are so focused on their craft that they really don't want to be bothered with budgeting and really just planning almost at all. Like their main focus is to get better in sports. What do you see with your young guys?
Yeah, I think that's a fair, assessment of what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of guys that come into the league, and I don't think they have the expertise or even the foresight to realize that, we always talk about the NFL stands for not for long, but in reality, for about 90% of the players, that's the reality. It's not for long. They're only going to be there 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So whatever money they make, they have to do a great job of making it work for them, so it can set them up for their life after football. I mean, we got Jason Witten retired this year. He played 15 years. That's an aberration. That's a rarity. There's very, very few players play into their 30s. Most people are done by 27, 28 years old. So, and, as a young guy, 22, 23 years old, you're not really, you don't have the expertise to know what to do with your money. You don't have the foresight. I mean, when you're 23 years old, what are you thinking about? You're not thinking about what's going to happen to you when you're 30 or what's going to happen to you when you're 40. Nobody thinks that. So I think it's important for them to have somebody to think for them in that way. And there are some guys when I was playing did this, but other guys now that, that they have someone who handles their money and pretty budgets it for them. So they may be making $2 million a year, but they're getting budgeted for, $300,000 a year, and the other, 1.7, is going to go work for them. Right.
Does the NFL do a good job of, educating the players and stressing the importance of? I mean, it really is an epidemic almost, where these players, there's more unfortunate stories than success stories as far as financially for players after they retire. So does the league do a good job of getting these guys ready and prepared for that?
Well, the league mandates, it's sort of like a rookie symposium or rookie seminars. And I think it's going to be occurring in the next week or so. For a lot of the draft picks to go, and just it's sort of an indoctrination into the NFL. It's not just finance, but a lot of other things that are going to come up, some security issues and things like that. But they have a portion of these meetings about handling your money, and they bring up the stories about guys that have lost it all. And, you talk to some of these guys when they get back, and to some of the guys it sinks in, to the other guys it just goes right over their head. So the NFL tries to do things like that. They set up these seminars. they make resources available to these players. But, the question is, if the player isn't focused on learning the stuff and benefiting from the stuff and utilizing the resources, then a lot of times it goes to waste. So I think the biggest challenge isn't necessarily, it isn't necessarily having the resources available. It's getting the players to understand the importance of utilizing the resources that are available to them.
Right. So the players we talk about the young guys and going up. What about the transition from being an NFL player to the transition to the civilian life, after the league? What does the league do? Does the league do a good job of preparing guys, and what do most of the guys do after they retire?
Well, I think that's the big question. And again, the league tries to provide resources for the players while they're playing, to give them opportunities to do internships and in different fields outside of football to help them transition when they're done playing. A guy that played at Princeton after I left, Keith Elias, who went on to play in the NFL with the Giants and the Colts, he's part of the transition team. He's a guy that goes in and, meets with a lot of players and helps them transition to life after football. There's two big challenges with that. Obviously, the one is, finding what you want to do with the rest of your life, finding that niche, taking that next step. The other part is being able to let go of the fact that you're no longer a football player. If you're retiring from the NFL at age 29, you've been a football player. That's been your identity for about 20 plus years. And that's been who you are. That's how you've identified yourself. And a lot of these guys, and I felt it when I stopped playing. It took me a couple of years to really find out who I was outside of being a football player. So that's another big challenge for these guys. And I think that is a pitfall that they fall into. And if they're not set up financially, to handle the transition, things could go really bad pretty quickly. Right.
So speaking of your career, how did you do injury wise? Like, you have a lot of bumps and bruises. Did you get any concussions? Like, what did you get out of it okay? Because I know a lot of guys don't. Because you were a running back, where there was a lot.
I didn't have anything major. I didn't have any major surgeries or major injuries. But there are little things that come up. My shoulder hurts me from time to time. My neck bothers me. My one knee gets sore. But overall, I live a fairly pain-free life at my age, which is pretty good. So I had a few concussions. At this point, I don't feel like I'm suffering any negative effects from it. But again, you never know as things progress down the road. But I'm not overly concerned with it because I only had a couple. I think the guys that have major problems are the ones that have double-digit plus concussions. And I was never close to that. So
yeah. So our guest today is Judd Garrett with the Dallas Cowboys, and you've coached with, I mentioned earlier, you were with the Dolphins and the Rams, and the Saints. So, two polarizing characters in those teams at the time. Mike Ditka with the Saints gave you your first coaching job, and Nick Saban with the Dolphins back then. You have any funny or interesting stories about Saban or Ditka that you want to share?
Well, Ditka was, I'm always going to feel grateful to him because he took a chance on me as a coach and he gave me the opportunity. And I always say about Mike Ditka was for 6 days of the week, he was the best head coach to coach for. Now the seventh day, Sunday, got a little dicey. You know, he was an extremely emotional coach, and you know, he wore his emotions on the sleeves, and it was a little bit challenging. You know, on Sundays, but you know, I love the guy. He was a great guy. He gave me an opportunity. You know, he's a lot smarter in football and in life than people tend to give him credit for. You know, he has the persona, you know, Iron Mike, Ditka, you know, sort of a rockhead, but he's a really smart guy. He's a really bright guy. He knows football. He's done well in his businesses outside of football. So, yeah, I really, you know, I really enjoyed my time with him.
Yeah. What was the story with you, Ditka, and like the first night you got to New Orleans? You were in a car with was it Randall Cunningham?
Yeah. Well, no, the story is that, you know, I'm at university school coaching with stiffs like you, and I get the call from the Saints that they need a guy. So I fly there the next morning, and that night I'm out to steak dinner, you know, in a limousine with Mike Ditka and Randall Cunningham. You know, it was sort of a, you know, 180-degree turn from hanging out with Jim Novakovic to hanging out with Ditka and Randall.
I mean, I don't know. It's close. I mean, it's close. So, all right. Our guest today, Judd Garrett with the Dallas Cowboys, and we're talking about money and finance. You know, one quick story I wanted to remind you of was when your oldest son, Calvin, was I think he was like 4 or 5, and you got called into the school for a teachers conference because Calvin's lying. Do you remember that story?
No.
So the teacher calls you into the school and said Calvin's lying. So you had to go in. You and your wife had to go in, and the teacher's like, so Calvin is telling everybody that he knows Troy Aikman. You don't remember that story?
I remember that.
Yeah. And you had to tell the teacher, well, actually, he did meet him. He did spend some time with him. Yeah. Yeah, that's a funny story.
So,
all right. So to wrap up here, if you could go back in time to your 20-year-old self and give yourself some advice, what advice would that be?
well, I think ultimately is handle your money better, have more foresight in your life. You know, you know, I was told a lot of times that, you know, if you put a certain amount of money away every month, you know, it's going to pay dividends for you down the road. And I didn't always believe in that. I didn't always buy that. And you can find a way to take whatever money you can have, even if you're not making a lot of money, and put it away and invest it and let it grow and build. When you look back 25 years later, you're going to be glad you did it. So those little sacrifices now will pay off down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like Amy says, nobody ever says, I wish I didn't save, you know, I wish I would have started later. You know, there's nothing more important than time when it comes to saving money. If you have time, if you're young enough, you could save a lot of money.
Exactly. And then, you know, I mean, and I got into that later on, probably about 10 years later than I should have. But even getting it in at a little bit later date, I look back on it as time has piled up, and that's really been beneficial to me. So, you know, it's just further proof that the sooner you start, the better.
Yes, absolutely. Well, hey, thanks for being on. I think we did okay. I don't think Amy's going to yell at me once I hit stop on here. So I think we talked enough finance and sports. It was a good blend. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Maybe next time we can go over how I kicked your butt in basketball about 28 out of 29 times, and you only talk about the one time that.
Well, it was the last time. That's all that counts.
Yeah.
That's all that counts.
Yeah. Okay. We can go over that game if you want.
Just right. 1 out of 29. I won maybe
what?
5.
What about the racquetball? about the racquetball game.
I swear.
When I was beating you so bad that you kept hitting me in the back of the head with the ball.
I got you good, and he almost hit me. He almost hit me. Like you stepped toward me. I thought you were gonna hit me because he's a big
No,
guy.
it was the second time you hit me that I almost hit you. I gave you the pass on the first time.
No, I smoked it right in the middle of your back. I got you good. So, hey man, thanks for being on. I'll talk to you later, and thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you like the video, share it, and we'll see you next Friday. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Judd.
All right.
I think we're off. Stop. Amy! You still there?
I can hear you.
Okay. Are we off?
No, you're still live.
We're still live? Nuh-uh, I hit stop.
It says live on Facebook in the top right corner on my thing.
Bye, Judd.
Hey. Should I get out of this?